Saddle up your horses.
Pitter patter, let's get at her. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos Podcast, and it is the time of the NFL offseason, and we are really excited to have the opportunity to talk about, obviously, those Denver Broncos. We have reached the doldrums of the offseason, and it was certainly nice to kind of take the week off. I know it seems like we've been recording constantly, and it seems like we've been a rather busy bunch, and so it just felt really nice to kind of take the week off. I know I was on vacation. Brandon was going and busy with what he was going through, and so it was just the best case all the way around.
What up, Big Mike? Yeah, that was a nice break, but now we're back, and I'm hyped to talk about the team. This is not technically part of the agenda, but from what we've heard in the past couple weeks since we've been live is Bo Nix in camp seems to be doing pretty well. So, yeah, we're back.
Yeah. It's
I didn't have the video ready, but I want you to just imagine that I just played I want you to put the word out there that we're back up video.
Yeah, so I'm definitely excited to be back. I know Brandon's excited to be back. We have a fun topic or two or multiple to certainly talk about tonight, and we will first talk about the indispensables, not the expendables.
Indispensibles.
Yeah, indispensables, but not and obviously not the expendables, which are like the trio of movies, or the 4 movies. I think they did 4. The 4 movies with Statham and Sylvester Stallone. And
the only quote I remember from that entire series is when Statham fights all those dudes at the basketball court, and then knocks the one guy down, slams a basketball on his chest, and then pulls out a switchblade and stabs it. And is like, next time I'll deflate all your balls.
Was that
elite line?
What's up, Clayton?
Yo.
Was that the first one?
I think so. Honestly, I don't know if I've seen more than the first one, but
yeah. It's a lot. I think it's going to be a fun conversation. And then after that conversation, we are going to talk about players who have the most to prove. And we'll try our best to list off, the players who we feel like have the most to prove. And if we forget one, feel free to chime in the chat as far as a player that comes to mind, and we'll get a chance to talk about it. And we'll also get a chance to talk about what they need to do to make their season a successful one. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think more importantly than anything, Brandon, it is really nice to finally see Josh Sherman's name in the chat.
Holy shit.
He says
he's still here. He's alive.
This is in there. He says that he's been watching the stream, but we all know the true proof of watching a stream is if you are commenting on the stream.
So the link is frozen on Cam's big head. That's on purpose.
Hopefully, it's a big forehead like Peyton Manning, if you will.
Now I want to see if it's no. It looks fine. It looks fine. Yo, Josh, what up, man? It's been a while.
Yeah. And by the way, I heard that there was an interview that Big Mike had today. So,
Big Mike had an interview. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully his job interview went well. And we hope you get it, buddy.
Crush that shit.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the indispensables conversation, Brandon, as you're eating chips.
No. It's a mint. I can still speak.
Okay. All right. I feel like the way we're going to phrase this, I
have that one you won't expect. Probably.
Well, I was going to say we'll have the conversation of, who are the ones you can't replace now, but then in the future, who are some of those guys that are going to be in the future? In essence, like like franchise cornerstone players, players you do not trade, untradeable assets, if you will, is basically what we are talking about. And it goes without repeating, that there's two guys. It actually was one for a good part of last year. And then a guy who's...
That's right, Denise.
That's right. So yeah, it was one guy, but then it kind of quickly became two guys. One on the defensive side of the ball, and then the one that surprised everybody was a big, fat guard who wears number 77 at right guard, who feels like he's jumped into the mix for indispensibles, right? That's what we're talking about. Indispensibles.
Yeah.
What's up, Denise?
Nice. Do you want to start first?
Let's start first with Quinn Miners, because I mean that one was a surprise to a degree. I mean, like in essence, like he played pretty well, his rookie year, but then he took a significant leap. What was it? The end of not this last season, but that the year before that. But he really took off. And really became arguably the best guard, for the Broncos, and so much so that it was not even in a contract year. And then now, you look at it from the contract point of view, you're talking about a situation where there's at least the opportunity that Miners could reset the guard market, or maybe not necessarily the guard market, but he is going to be very well paid, I feel like, by the Broncos here in this next offseason, and hopefully, and then crossing our fingers and praying that the deal gets done.
Yeah, I think if there's like one guy on the offensive side of the ball that's like the offensive Pat Surtain, it's probably Quinn Miners.
Yeah.
Also, apparently he's an elite cornhole player. Did you see that video?
Kudos to Big Mike. I think it was actually Big Mike.
I think it might have been.
Yeah.
I remember. I'm going to see if I can find it.
Yeah, I think Big Mike was
probably was.
Who shared that Miners was in the cornhole event with cornhole's fun, man. I haven't actually had the opportunity to play it, but competitive cornhole.
I'm sorry, did you say you've never played cornhole? Like never?
No, I meant like for a bit. Like I have not played cornhole in a bit.
Okay. I was scared.
I've definitely played.
Don't do that to me.
Could you? I feel like that would be a fun. This is a very subtle and bizarre tangent, but that would be a fun video game. Do a like an NFL Blitz style cornhole video game.
How would you make it like? But how'd you make it like Blitz? Because like Blitz, you could literally kill people. Cornhole, you're not tackling anyone. How? Like, I mean, I know you can make it so you can tackle people, but like, how do you have that work?
Well, so basically, I have the.
I guess I'm making a cornhole game.
But I guess basically what I'm trying to say is like there's the clip that's in my mind is, and it's been circling on X lately, but it's when bowling was competitive. It was with two ladies, and the ladies getting ready to throw her her shot in bowling, and the other person literally knocks it off her hand and knocks her to the floor. So I could kind of see that situation. The only thing that would make it interesting is what would certainly make it interesting is you're clearly facing each other. So maybe not so much like Blitz style, but you try and figure out ways to block the shot, and creative ways to make sure it doesn't go in. What's up, John?
That'd be cool. That'd be fun. Oops.
What's up, John?
We keep clicking the same message. There you go.
Streets are saying that he may appear on Manly Broncos near the end of the month.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, Quinn Miners is definitely an indispensable player. I have an interesting one. Anything else you want to talk about with Quinn?
Well, let's get it. Let's get it over with PS2 first.
That's an obvious. That's the low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Best corner in the game. I don't mind people that list, other corners that are cornerback one. I mean, there are other terrific and really good corners in the National Football League, but it's funny. My dad and I were actually talking about this the other day. There was at one point where corners were coming into the NFL that were, 6'2", 6'3", in a very rare case 6'4". But they really didn't have the athletic skill set, right, that you see with a guy like a Pat Surtain. But now with Sauce Gardner into the mold, Jesus Horn into the mold, Surtain, it's specifically Surtain, and obviously Gardner, but you're really starting to see a change of the guard with corners now that are 6'2", a little bit lanky, but very, very athletic, but have great, size and strength and everything at the position. That Surtain has basically revolutionized where things were with the cornerback position. Like the one quarterback that really kind of brings it, actually Richard Sherman to a degree was 6'2", 6'3", right? But as far as being at a much more consistent clip, it feels like, you're starting to see a little bit more at the cornerback position. And I think that, for what I was going to say is that, speaking of Richard Sherman, there was another corner that was a part of the Seahawks who was 6'3", 6'4", around 6'4". Brandon Browning is who I'm referring to. He was solid, but he was a very grabby corner. And, I feel like at times, like when you are a bit of a grabby corner, it's to make up for maybe some of your athletic ability, at times. And so I just think that you're seeing Surtain and guys like Gardner really revolutionize this position at corner.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's the most corner is like the one position that the most boring player possible is also usually the best player, which is
what made Champ Bailey so good.
Surtain. I didn't realize Champ Bailey actually still has the record for most, I think it passes defended ever.
Was that his was it 2004 season where he should have won Defensive Player of the Year and he didn't?
Yeah. Yep, he does. 203.
He was something else, man. He was something.
I miss Champ a little bit.
But what
could you imagine a secondary of Champ Bailey and Pat Surtain at the same time?
You hate to bring Madden into this, but yes, you certainly can envision it. But as far as this day, yeah. But as far as in real life, yeah. As far as just current, it would be so fun. And I think that's a fun conversation to have because I mean we've had these conversations a bit before, but it's like who are players you want to bring from the past, to the present and positions and stuff like that. Big Mike chimes in, and he mentions Garrett Bowles. We know Garrett Bowles is on a contract year, right? He is, you could argue, deserving of probably a new contract.
Would he sign one, though, is my question.
Right. So I think it's, let me just phrase it this way. I think that the stuff surrounding Courtland Sutton and Garrett Bowles, which by the way, Courtland Sutton will, from my understanding, have his first media appearance since all this stuff has gone down with possibly skipping the voluntary workouts, and will he be at the mandatory, workouts next week, new contract, etc. He's having his first media appearance on DNVR tomorrow, for DNVR Broncos. So he's there to promote an event that he's having, or something like that. But you could venture to guess that he is going to get bombarded with questions about contract and will he be showing up for mandatory minicamp, that kind of thing. But look, Garrett Bowles was there and he showed up to voluntary minicamp, and there was at least a point where even Peyton mentioned that 98%, actually using the percentage, 98% of the people showed up to voluntary minicamp. Basically, it was a subtle dig, in my opinion, for Sutton when he threw out that percentage, and maybe not so subtle, but a dig at Sutton in the sense that, look, you have a guy who's been, should I say, very needy in wanting a new contract, right? In terms of Garrett Bowles, but also needy in the sense that, every time it feels like the Broncos have wanted to restructure his deal, it's been a no-go. He doesn't want to restructure, and it seems like, the way that had gone, it didn't seem like that was likely. But with the fact that a guy like that, who is a captain 100%, shows up to voluntary minicamp like that, when a guy who is a supposed captain does not, I would feel like that really bodes really well. I feel like, at least for the camaraderie of the locker room, specifically just even from the offensive line standpoint, Brandon, because, like, I mean, you and I would even have conversations about just the consistency and the camaraderie of the offensive line in the past that they had, even post Peyton Manning, where it was just a revolving door. It didn't really matter what position, left tackle, right tackle, the guard positions, like, it was a revolving door. So having the growth and the consistency to develop and become a much more cohesive unit, it feels like you might actually see this be an opportunity with the Broncos now, if they do in fact go through with it and really sign Bulls. My question for you, and you can talk about Bulls even more here, but what would a type of deal and a specified deal be for Bulls right now?
Oh, that's a really tough question. I mean, he's 32.
Because right now,
I can't imagine it being more than, like.
Because right now it's a steal right now in terms of his contract.
Yeah. Let me get some comparable numbers here for guys above that 30 age.
It was 4 years and
it was 4 years, $68 million is what he had signed before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you just do another 4-year deal?
That's right.
I really don't know. I don't really see the point in going lower than that. But I also feel like you could make a fair argument that could potentially be his last deal in the NFL. I mean, it's going to be 36 by the end of that.
Yeah, and it really, I don't think they do 4.
If they don't do 4, then, I mean, I don't know if he's at Laramie Tunsil's level, but, like, Laramie Tunsil's, I mean, he's obviously younger, but Laramie Tunsil is it's a slightly similar comparison. It got 3 years, $75 million. So maybe you do 3 years, $60 million. Do you want to give him $20 million per year, age 32?
The reason why I say 4 is I just don't know about the level of play. Tyron Smith, I feel like, is actually, Tyron Smith, isn't he, or is he mid-30s? I think he's mid-30s, isn't he?
I think he's like 35, 33. He's not as old as I thought, but he's 33.
Wow, I thought he was actually old.
I did too.
I should say older. But yeah, the reason I feel like maybe what we did, because I feel like what they do sometimes, and it crosses all sports, but I feel like maybe what you do is you do 3 years with a player club option. Is probably what you would do, maybe, in my opinion. I feel like more teams should, abuse the club and player option, more. And specifically, I feel like for Bulls, I love the idea of doing a player club option, because then at that point you're talking about, okay, let's do a 3-year deal. We'll see what he's like after that third year. If the decline is happening, then okay, we'll decide to maybe move on from him. Here's my question. Now, granted, it is the likelihood of it actually happening based on the market and the tackle specific position, and obviously with it being Florida and there's no state tax in Florida. Who would you rather have, Tristan Wirfs or Garrett Bowles?
Is that a legitimate question?
Because Tristan Wirfs,
it's Wirfs and it's not close. I'm sorry. I love Bulls, but it's not close.
Because Wirfs is a free agent next year.
On paper, there's no way they let him go. There's no possible way.
That's why I say it's pretty unlikely, but yeah.
I mean, I'm going with Tristan. Like, I'd rather have Wirfs, but there's no way they're letting him go.
Yeah. Especially the market itself. Like, the left tackle market isn't all that great. Maybe besides Garrett Bowles and Tristan Wirfs. But I mean, overall, I don't mind the idea of even going out and re-signing him, just because, as we said, is the growth and the consistency that you'll see.
There's a reason left tackles are basically never available in free agency.
Yeah, it's because
good left tackles.
Yeah, it's because they stay on as much as they can. Alex Smith, no relation to the quarterback, right? With the San Francisco 49ers and Washington Commanders. He says that he hopes that we re-sign Bulls to 3 or 4 year deal. So my thing is, maybe you do the same deal. Whether it's a 3 year
468.
Yeah,
again,
because I feel like that it's at that point where, because I feel like it's at that point where, based on the play, maybe that's your baseline. Actually, maybe that's the actual baseline and starting point for Bulls is you basically give him the same exact contract. Maybe you bump up the guarantees just a little bit or something. But you do the 4 year 68, maybe a bump in guarantees, and you kind of go from there.
I mean, would he take the same deal though? Because I feel like this is the thing with like good players is they always want to up their last contract. Like, can you tell me the last time a player just took the same contract 2 years in a row, like, or two negotiations in a row? Because I can't.
Yeah. So here's the question for you. When we're talking about, when we talk about now future players that are just irreplaceable, right? You really don't have to look no further than Bo Nix. After Garrett Bowles, I feel like, because Bo Nix,
like we used to be like future irreplaceable. You mean?
Yes, future. Because
any good quarterback is going to be irreplaceable,
right? So
if Bo Nix is irreplaceable, that means he's good. That's all I want in life.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like that seems to be your the trend, or what it should be, is that if he does hit a quarterback, then he's pretty clear, the next irreplaceable guy in the roster. I
have a guy who could pretty quickly become irreplaceable.
Go for it.
John Franklin Myers, the guy we just traded from the Jets. And the reason I'd say he could quickly become irreplaceable, indispensable, whatever you want to say, is a very consistent force in the pass rush from the interior. Usually, he's also a very consistent run blocker. Two things that we have not had in.
When you say run
stopper.
Yeah.
Two things we've not had in a very long time, like against the run is what I meant. As we've painfully learned in the past year with our inability to stop the run, although it got better. But we also we haven't had consistent pass rush anywhere, but we definitely haven't had consistent pass rush from the inside. So I think he could pretty quickly become, him or maybe Roach, like whoever becomes like the go-to run stopper, but I think it's probably going to be John Franklin Myers.
Could even be both. It's worth repeating. I love that John Franklin Myers pick. It's worth repeating. The New York media, the New York even fan base.
Oh, they were pissed.
They were pissed that Franklin Myers was let go. It would be fun during Jets week to have that conversation with Scott, right, Brendan, and just to get the pulse of what really went down, with what really went down as far as, with that trade. And because I'll tell you, I really do wonder, what it'll be like with specifically that defensive line. What's up, Jack? Make sure you tune into the Wild Wild West show that just wrapped up here, tonight. Actually, just before the Manly Broncos went live. Because I was actually gonna more ask this question from that like same positional group, right? But I was going to go to possibly, Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning, the edge room in general, but specifically, the Ohio State boys, right? Meaning Jonathan Cooper and Baron Browning, they're both in a contract year, right? They're both in a contract year. The contract is up. And this is a really nice transition, I feel like, into... See, we even got a thumbs up there. It's a nice little transition into, talking about, players who have the most to prove. Right now, Brandon, I don't know who I would choose between Cooper and Browning, which one I would want to have hang around. I think there is a window and a possibility they actually do keep both because, with the deep pockets that the Penner group, I do think there's at least a possibility that both of them hang around, but I don't know that answer, Brandon. I don't know that answer about, do they re-sign Cooper or do they re-sign Baron Browning?
Well, it's whichever one shows out the most this year.
But yeah, no, that's the smart answer. And then
because like Jonah Ellis was also drafted for a reason.
But as we found out, maybe Jonah Ellis was actually drafted because of the Drew Sanders injury.
Well,
I'd say that's pure speculation, though.
Maybe, but he's still drafted for a reason. Like, he was drafted because we need production. Here's the thing. That makes it, if it was because of the Drew Sanders injury, because maybe they believed that Drew Sanders was going to make a meaningful impact in that room, and they didn't necessarily trust the consistency of Browning and Cooper. I think they're both good, but as we've talked about several times, it's just like they're good, they're not it. Is Jonah Ellis it? I don't know. But he was drafted for a reason because we need more pass rush. That's the reason that I said John Franklin Myers is already close to being indispensable. He hasn't even played a single snap for us, but he's been a proven pass rush specialist and proven against the run. And we sorely lack in both of those areas, especially because we haven't had a pass rush since Von Miller, pretty much. Like, it hasn't existed. So we drafted a pass rush for a reason. And until one of these guys proves that they can be the consistent pass rusher, then we're probably going to keep doing it.
Let me rephrase this question. Who do you trust more?
I don't know. I don't have an answer. Whichever one whichever one this season.
I'm basing this right now. Like,
I don't. They're even.
Yeah, it's an okay answer. I think
because they haven't because neither one of them has shown me enough for me to say I trust them over the other one.
I agree.
Right now, they're both like, okay, you have some potential. You've kind of done some stuff. You can play football.
I hope
that's all I know.
I hope they go play football. But I think that where I agree with you. I really do think that we really will obviously get our answer, but I think if I was to throw the poker chips in and make a bet, I feel like I would probably go maybe Baron Browning's route. And the reason why I say Browning is and we've said it before, he's obviously in the conversation of maybe the most talented edge rusher of that entire room. And if he's able to figure it out and, stay on the field, more importantly, and pray that number 5 is not a cursed number, given the fact that was Randy Gregory's old number. Obviously, it was his old college number, meaning Browning. But I really feel like Browning.
I think Browning might be the more physical talent between the two of them, but
right. Yeah, the physical talent. But I think what makes the Jonathan Cooper thing so fascinating and fun is we're talking about a guy who is the most consistent. And kudos to Frankie. I will use this ad nauseum, or Frankie or Joey when they hopped on here, and I will use this as ad nauseum. Cooper is the Tim Patrick of that edge room. He is Mr. Consistent. He will do his best to always get the job done. And sometimes when you're not on the field, the most consistent player is the one who will always show up. So that's where it gets a bit interesting, is specifically of the edge room. Is I don't know even which player of that edge room who has the most to prove. Even within that edge room, because you could pick a handful of guys within that edge room who have a lot to prove this year. Benito, he built off a really good season, right? And can he actually put maybe even a better year, right? An even better year, and finally achieve something which isn't actually something this room has really seen for a while, since Von Miller, and that is a double-digit sack season, Brandon. So is Benito one of those guys who is a double-digit sack, machine? Is it Jonathan Cooper that type of player who's a double-digit sack machine? I think that the thing that's
you can, with the lack of proven commodities we've seen from in that room, you could probably also put Jonah Ellis in that. Again, it's just a lot of maybe potential, but he is another guy that could do that. Again, I have no idea if he will, but it's just a lot of guys who could. We don't know, because for sure this guy has done it, and that's the biggest problem to me.
Yeah.
Jonah Ellis is freaky. That was his thing in college at Utah, was his just pass rush moves. He wasn't he didn't look like a pass rusher that's playing just at the college level, right? Most guys come into the league, they don't really know. They don't have a plan, or you think of it you hear a lot of time the repertoire of what they do to win their rep against whoever's trying to block them. And Jonah does have a myriad of counters and swim moves and whatever he needs to do to win. He's not the guy that's just trying to be, oh, well, I'm stronger than you or I'm faster than you, so I'm going to beat you, because that's not going to work in the NFL.
And I feel like,
at least not nearly as much.
Well, and I feel like when you look specifically at Benito and Ellis, something that has been said a few times, even for both of those players, is that Benito, when he came out, when Benito came out, he was compared to Hassan Reddick, right, Brendan? Right? He was compared to Hassan Reddick a little bit. Ellis.
I think I saw that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Ellis. Who did he get compared to a little bit? Hassan Reddick.
Hassan Reddick as well. Yeah.
So I
trust but verify. Huh. Yeah. Seriously.
But I think where I look, and I want Benito to have an encore season and obviously a better season. I think the argument can be made that Ellis is probably in, at least at this point, a much better situation than Benito. And I know that sounds so crazy to say that, but the reason why I say that is because, to your point, he has so much in his bag of tricks to get to the pass, to get to the quarterback, where Benito, it feels like he's a little bit more right now about just a pure speed rusher. Now, to Benito's credit, like Benito has actually played really well right now in minicamp. He's getting a lot of rave reviews in minicamp, and that was the case. That was the case here this last year, where you're really starting to get a chance to see Benito's name more and more from a lot of people, in those circles and in the know, where Benito was probably a guy that you want to circle. And if there is anything that I know, and if there's anything that I know that will significantly help Benito get to that next level, is Jamar Cain was promoted to defensive line coach. And if anybody that has been following Jamar Cain was with Oklahoma during Benito's tenure. So there's nobody really in that room.
Well, yeah, that's true.
There's really nobody that's in that room. I would feel like, granted, they probably know each other really well now. The entire, team knows each other pretty well now. But as far as getting back to college, there's no one who really knows the tendencies more with Benito than Cain.
That's true. The other thing I was going to say is, even though he's officially the defensive backs coach and pass game coordinator, Jim Leonard is going to have his hands on every part of this defense.
You feel like?
And he's going to make an impact on that room as well. I believe that. I think Jim Leonard, I still fully believe, was brought in as like
almost a co-DC, right?
Almost a future. He like we're going to let go of Vance Joseph, and Jim Leonard's going to be our defensive coordinator. Like, if Vance Joseph has another year at all, like he did last year, I know he turned it around, but if he slips, I think he gone, and it's Jim Leonard's show.
And if there's one thing we know, when you look at Wisconsin teams, when Leonard was there, they really like stout run defenders, but also like really, physical specimens that can get to the quarterback. And there's probably a player in that room that is worth looking into that, and that would be Jonah Ellis. In terms of just the size, the framework, the array of pass rush moves, and actually, I don't even think it's out of the realm of possibility that Cooper and Browning would fall into that as well. Like, I think Cooper and Browning actually would fall into that also. What I don't know is Benito, because, Benito, if he can just add just a little bit more to that bag, right? If he can just add a little bit more, pass rush moves to his repertoire, I really feel like, the ceiling is there. I will say this. The edge room, I feel like, has a much higher ceiling right now than the wide receiver room. The wide receiver room and the edge room is very identical. But the edge room, I feel like, has a lot more ceiling to it, I feel like, with a few of those people in the room.
Yeah, maybe it's, I almost don't know. I don't know if I agree, though. I'm debating, because I think the biggest, is it possible the edge room has the higher ceiling? Maybe, but it's shrouded in mystery, whereas the wide receiver room has a high ceiling and also the highest floor between the two, because as long as Cortland Sutton is still here, which who knows, I don't know. I just feel like, again, it's
a hard question.
It's unknown versus known, and I'd rather have known that can still, like, here's the thing though, but like there's also some unknown with like Troy Franklin, and Troy Franklin's obviously connection with Bo Nix. So I don't know. I almost am going to disagree with you there, just because I feel like it could be. It's kind of like the question of like what's in the box. It could be, or what was the joke? It's like, would you rather have this mystery box, or would you rather have like this known thing, right? Like what's the box? It's mysterious. That's the allure of it. It could be anything. It could even be the other option, right? I can't remember exactly what it is, but that was the joke. I think it's from Family Guy. Like it's tempting because it's alluring. It's like, yeah, they have the potential, they have the ability to do that, but you still haven't seen them do it. So until you see them do it at all, I just have to give the award to the room that actually has at least one player in it that's proven that he can actually back it up.
And maybe the determining factor is a separate position, and that would be the quarterback position. If the quarterback position is, something that hits.
Well, that too. And like we've seen receivers in that room excel with hot garbage. So,
yeah. And speaking of Cortland Sutton, to his credit, he put up 1,000 yards with Joe Flacco, Brandon Allen, and Drew Lock at quarterback. Now, granted,
that's just
but granted, nothing's really happened since then, unfortunately. Moving on, some players. Let's kind of go back now onto the offensive side of the ball, Brandon, and talk about players who have a lot to prove. Let's just start first with it feels like maybe the most obvious candidate, or one of the obvious candidates. And by the way, people that are in the chat right now, feel free to chime in on players that you feel like are indispensable, or irreplaceable on the roster right now. And then as we're having this conversation right now about players who have the most to prove and why, feel free to chime in the chat. I feel like, Brandon, the one that is probably the most obvious is Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, it feels like...
well, especially with the Audric Estime knee issue.
Yeah. Estime. There's probably another guy you could probably list in there in that running back room because of Estime. But Javonte Williams, I mean, admittedly, I know that we've kind of had maybe not so good Javonte Williams talk as far as, maybe of late and everything, as far as how he played in 2023. But I will admittedly say there was a stretch. Granted, it was a small stretch, and it was early in the season, like 2 or 3 games. And I think it was the Packers game and then the game after that or before that, where you kind of got the chance to really see the old Javonte Williams of old, where he was able to break tackles. He was able to, evade and really break through tackles and be that guy that we saw in 2022. But as the season was wearing on, the wear and tear a little bit, and still recovering a little bit from that ACL injury, it felt like he just got exhausted, Brandon, or just really tired. The vision was just not there anymore. It just felt like he was running into a brick wall every run. It felt like he would run into offensive linemen. So it was just a very frustrating end of the year, or maybe middle to end of the year for Javonte. I feel like.
I think it was both, Josh, because Javonte just looked physically, I don't want to say slower. He just didn't look like himself, and he got better, but it just coming off of a multiple ligament tear in the knee joint for a running back. It's just like,
It's a good point.
It's DEFCON 1 of like the worst possible scenario. But I mean, you're not wrong. Like, I think they both contribute.
Yeah, but now we should probably say it this way, Brandon. Just him simply coming, out of that injury and then finishing the year, that is the biggest victory of itself. Him actually coming back from that injury and playing a full season with it in that recovery, that is the biggest victory of them all. It was just unfortunately how he played in the games. Unfortunately, when you're critiquing games, that's what you have to do, is you have to look at those games. And it's a good point. I mean, when you have bad quarterback play, it raises it lowers the the performance level of of everybody in that room, not just wide receivers. It lowers the floor significantly, a little bit of the players in that room. My dad jokes every once in a while. I think he even said it at times when we went golfing, Brandon, but like he kind of just was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have a tendency to lower the performances of when we're playing golf and everything." It's like so he kind of jokes a little bit about that, but I mean, as far as like with the quarterback play and everything, it does have a tendency to really kind of lower the offensive performances, though. What I'm trying to say is you're actually
lower the performance of the people around you is what you're saying. Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously, especially with quarterback.
So what I'm trying to say here, also subtly, is you are a really good golfer. My dad just stinks at golf, and so
Shut
actually,
shut up.
So you're actually a really good golfer.
Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. That's just mean. No, I have a guy that has, in my opinion, a lot to prove on offense.
Yeah.
Alex Forsyth. Because at this point, I mean, if he's not our starting center, I would be shocked. And it's not even because he's not that he's not good. I just think it's almost he's kind of a shoo-in a little bit. Like Luke Wattenberg, he's around. Sam Mustapher.
You're a Star Wars nerd. Say it right.
Shut up. Is I don't know, a guy that was brought in maybe for depth, and he has like some flexibility along the line, but I think it's pretty much Alex Forsyth's job to lose. But I also think that like when you have a rookie quarterback behind center, you need to have a center that you can trust to make the protection calls and not fumble the snap and be that consistent friend of the quarterback. Like that handoff and that relationship is super important in general, but especially for like a rookie quarterback. And I think Alex Forsyth has like I think he's kind of on, I'm not saying he's on the hot seat, but like he has shoes to fill as well, because
Lloyd deserves the bag.
Just Lloyd, yeah. I mean, honestly, Lloyd Cushenberry, his career was kind of up and down. It started off and it kind of was a bit shaky, but then he really turned it around. And he, honestly, I wanted us to keep him. I wish we kept him. He got paid. He deserved it. But I think now we're kind of having to climb the mountain again of now we got to find a guy to replace him. And Alex Forsyth, as much as I've heard great things about him, as much as I've seen people rave about him, I've heard coaches rave about him.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's like a guy that there's a lot riding on his ability to be the dude. And obviously you have the Oregon connection, at least a little bit, but I don't know. Was he there with Bo? I think it was like 1 year.
1 year.
Yeah. 1 year. The transfer from Auburn is confusing me. So, I mean, they do have like that. They have that chemistry already, which is super important, but I just think like, especially on the interior of the offensive line, we've already talked about how good the guard spots are, specifically Miners. Like, it's another place where it can be brought down by the weakest link. And right now, for all intents and purposes, the weakest link on the interior of the offensive line is Alex Forsyth. it could be an amazing interior offensive line if he lives up to that potential. But I think he has a lot to prove. And I hope he does, because I don't know what else the plan is. Like, I literally just don't think there is one. I think it's him or bust.
Yeah.
Who else is out there at this point?
Yeah.
Lindsay was released. Who's going to retire, which blew my mind. That was shocking.
Yeah, and probably going to end up retiring.
Yeah, that's what was shocking about it.
Yeah.
Because he's, he's 32, but like, he seemed fine. So, I don't know.
One thing I was just going to make a little bit about, as far as with Forsyth and everything, is like I'm really looking forward to the growth that we'll possibly see. Seems like they did add depth there, so I'm really looking forward to that. And when you talked about Cushenberry, you can call it unfortunate pressure, like when we're speculating and stuff like that, right? But but I feel like for him, and again, I hate saying it like this, but when you're talking about Cushenberry earlier, the way Forsyth has to play is it has to play to the degree of moving on from Lloyd Cushenberry was the right move, right? So in essence, he's got to prove he was the right investment. And it's crazy to say that because he was a 7th round draft pick. And by the way, I wasn't really blaming Javonte necessarily. It was just more critiquing the performance that we were seeing onto the field. And actually, we were talking, Mike, about Javonte not as irreplaceable, but as a player who has a lot to prove heading into 2024. So and actually I was going to look a little bit also onto that offensive line, Brandon. Granted, he finished the year better, but let's look at the whole offensive line, Brandon. Who is the weakest link of the offensive line?
I mean, probably right tackle. I mean, I'd almost still say Alex Forsyth, just because of lack of proven anything. But honestly, no. I'm going to stick with Forsyth. Why did I say Tucker? Alex Forsyth. I'm very tired. Alex Forsyth. I'm sticking with him. As he's the weakest link to me, but I think I can guess who you might say.
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily wrong. The only reason I'm sticking with Forsyth is
no, it's a great one.
I just think he's still the weakest link. But Mike McGlinchey is like glaring you in the face.
Yeah. And I'm very curious to see what we will see with the second year with McGlinchey in that second year into the system. It's evident that he has athletic traits, right? He fits the prototypical, tackle mold. Whether it's a left tackle or right tackle, he fits the prototypical tackle. And he was. So we also have a situation where when he was available, there were a few guys they probably could have invested in, but in order to bring in possibly one of the better or the best player that's on the market, you gotta spend. And with it, unfortunately, being a tackle position, it's an investment. It is undoubtedly an investment. And to McGlinchey's credit, though, he did play pretty well to where the weakest link on the offense maybe was not so weak anymore, by season's end. And kudos to him. I mean, seriously, like kudos to him, because especially in, the day and age of, where, run blocking and especially trying to block for Russell Wilson, which we know, and it's not just a McGlinchey thing, it's everybody that was on that offensive line. Russ was a offensive line, or let me say this, an offensive lineman's maybe not so best friend in some cases, because he would run around and cause the offensive line to block a half second or a couple seconds longer than they should, right? And so I really wonder, now that we are going to be seeing, whether it is Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, we are going to be seeing the Sean Payton offense that we were probably visioning when Payton came here. I'm very curious to see what that growth will be like for McGlinchey in year 2. And I think another player that you would have to roll into that mix as well is the other signee that they brought in Ben Powers. Now, Ben Powers actually started out not so well, but played probably exceptionally well, near the end of the season. So, but yeah, McGlinchey was the other person on the offensive line between probably he and Forsyth that I had circled. The visual, by the way, the visual of this is incredible and sad and bad at the same time, I gotta say.
What am I looking at?
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely between those two guys. I'm sticking with Forsyth. Although I do think Mike McGlinchey has a lot to prove as well. That he can hold up at right tackle and be at least serviceable in pass protection, because we're going to need to give Bo Nix as much help as we can. I'm sticking with Forsyth as the number one, just because, again, I kind of feel like it's him or nothing right now at center, which is not a good feeling. I mean, Palczewski, you never know. I mean, he could come in and play for McGlinchey. Matt Pert is around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that I'm saying that these guys should be starting over McGlinchey, but like, I just feel like there's
swing tackle, but
more swing availability at tackle than there is at center right now. I mean, Luke Wattenberg, yeah, maybe, but
yeah. And actually, Alex, Brandon mentioned that about
yeah, I did.
About the center depth with Mustafar. Yeah,
I have the high ground.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, he's okay.
Yeah,
but I just still think it's Forsyth or bust.
Going, and I actually got to say, in the vein of him appearing on DNVR tomorrow, I will actually say that Courtland Sutton has a lot to prove, as far as one of those players who has a lot to prove, because you look at the situation. We talked about Garrett Bowles and everything even earlier. Garrett Bowles would obviously fall in line with a player who has a lot to prove in terms of a contract year. But in terms of Sutton, you want a new deal, right? You want a new deal, and I said it on 5280 yesterday, but I don't believe the report of him asking for $2 to $3 million. If he's asking for $2 to $3 million more, I would probably venture to guess the Broncos would have paid that by now. So I think it's actually a little bit more than he's actually wanting. And so he wants a new deal, and and this is just to given the current state of where things are at right now, but the Justin Jefferson's contract, it affects Courtland Sutton. I think that if you look at for Sutton, I think he's got to prove that he is worth the investment of possibly throwing $20 million at and getting a new contract, right? Mm-hmm. He's got to prove that. And so he's got to basically, this is the unfortunate thing with the whole Courtland Sutton situation, because what he's now created for himself, I feel like, is a unfortunate sort of circumstances and expectations now that are going to be on him in 2024. Meaning if he does not put forward a 1,000-yard season, they are going to come after him even harder. And that's just the way things, simply have been with given the contract situation and everything.
With a rookie quarterback, that almost never happens. Like, I saw this somewhere. I don't remember where I saw it. I have to look it up again. But the amount of, basically, it was like a study that was the amount of rookie quarterbacks taken. I think it was in the first 10 picks, so it wouldn't even count here. That then produced a number like a 1,000-yard wide receiver was like in the past more than a decade is like 2 or something. It's like so low.
Yeah. Actually, so Alex, to clarify that question, we are projecting.
I mean, so here's what I was saying, Alex. Yeah. I think it's Forsyth. Yeah. I just don't see Mustipher or Wattenberg. I mean, sure. Yeah, they played center. Could they potentially beat him out? Yeah, but I don't view them as starters. I view them as good swing guys. The only actual center that we have on our roster right now that I would view as starter potential is Forsyth. I mean, not that they can't beat him out, because they always could. You never know what happens. And competition is never a bad thing, but I'm saying it's Forsyth.
Yeah.
The reason I say Forsyth or nothing is yes, there are other options, but I think he's a shoo-in. I think he's the obvious. Yeah. He has to lose it badly for it to not be him. And that would honestly scare me more.
But to carry on a little bit, and this is something that Brandon and I mentioned before, to Alex, to your Mustipher and Matt Pert, but specifically the interior, Luke Wattenberg, but the additions that they've made, to the offensive line. No, they're not household names, but the depth of the team on that offensive line has been significantly addressed. And so the depth, I do feel like, is better overall on the offensive line than it has been in years past. So,
I mean, it definitely has been an improvement. Don't get me wrong. But I just think, especially in the interior, where it's honestly been, it's probably the strongest part. Mulls is still really good, even coming off that injury. The right side of the line less so, but I just think the interior has been the strength. But this is now the first year where we are going to have to switch centers, and I think Forsyth has pretty big shoes to fill. Mm-hmm. Cushenberry again turned it around, and he was playing great football. Ben Powers we don't even talk about him enough because Quinn Miners is so damn good. But Ben Powers is a good guard. So I think we can still have the interior of the offensive line be a strength, but I think it's all going to be on Alex Forsyth or whoever the center is. Maybe it's not Alex Forsyth, but I think it's Alex Forsyth to raise all boats or lower all boats.
So I said Cortland Sutton. Who are some other guys for you that you would roll into?
They're need to prove something. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have one guy. He's not on the offense. Does he need to be the offense?
No, it's entirely the team.
It's time for Riley Moss to do something.
Okay.
Because I know he had the injury, wasn't totally healthy, but Damari Mathis too. Although Damari Mathis, to be honest, to me is already kind of.
Well, here's the question:
himself into his own grave. But I just think Riley Moss has just been the kind he had the physical talent. Do it. Do something with it.
Well, here's the question: who has the most to prove, Riley Moss or Damari Mathis?
I probably would say Riley Moss. I mean, Damari Mathis is up there, but I look at it as Damari Mathis has already proved that he sucks. I'm sorry, but it's true. I mean, could he turn it around? Absolutely. But Riley Moss has proven nothing. We don't even know if Riley Moss can play football. We haven't seen it.
Well, he can play football. He played football at Iowa. I know. I know. I know.
That's totally different.
I know.
I mean, well, I didn't mean to hate on Damari Mathis so much. I love Damari Mathis. I was so excited for him. He was a great corner at Pitt. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened, but he
had good.
He could turn around, but it was bad.
He had the Michael Ojemudia. Situation.
Fumbled the bag.
Great 1 year, and then just has been on the decline ever since.
Although in that same room, I do think J Millionaire is outside of Surtain. Probably up there in the indispensable. He's already in the indispensable category for me because he's just such a damn good slot corner.
I think if that's a great one, because I feel like if we're going to throw to irreplaceable players, he's one where actually, what is his contract situation like? Because I feel like
not much.
Because it's definitely cheap.
Probably not enough. 3 years, $2.5 million in 2022.
So he's a free agent, isn't he?
Yeah, he will be a free agent in 2025, but it'll be exclusive rights. So
okay, so exclusive rights. Okay,
free agent if we choose to let him be one,
right?
Which we shouldn't and won't.
I actually would not be surprised if the Broncos take off the exclusive rights and sign him to a much bigger,
probably
a big contract. In 2025, I would not be surprised about that. I was actually going to go ahead and also keep it within the same vein of the secondary, and actually talk about another player who I feel like has a lot to prove, and I'm very, very curious. Specifically, given Jim Leonard, the way he uses, defensive backs, or the way he uses versatile players like this and physical players, I'm very curious about J.L. Skinner this year.
Mm-hmm. Didn't they come out and confirm they're still going to be a safety?
He confirmed. Peyton confirmed he's still going to be a safety, but I think it's not just the fact that I'm very curious to see how the whole safety room in general shakes out. But I think that I've been on record before. Obviously, I don't need to show it anymore. I'm a huge Justin Simmons fan. I have the jersey behind me, right? But I am very curious and excited to see how that safety room unfolds this year, because the versatility, the explosiveness, I feel like that's in this safety room, and the chemistry that's already been built with these three is going to be really fun. And, kudos to a guy I was actually talking to a couple days ago. I wouldn't even be surprised if you actually see a bit of a competition in terms of some of that safety room with sacks, Brandon, because Brandon Jones is a sack artist to a degree in getting after the quarterback. PJ Locke is a bit of a sack artist, a little bit, and getting after the quarterback. So I wouldn't even be surprised if we see a little bit of a competition there. And also with J.L. Skinner, you add him to the mold, he will just elevate that room so much with what he could possibly do. Right, with what he could possibly do, and the versatility. I know that they said that he's going to play as a safety, but I love the idea of him in the Jamal Adams type role, where you really have him as it's a safety, but it's the linebacker, that you also have as a pass rusher. He can basically be your roamer of the, in terms of the middle of the field, and in obviously rush the passer as well. So I'm very curious about him, and especially with what we were hearing Sean talk about him, it seems like he was turning a corner. Granted, it was scout team, but they were noticing a little bit that he was really turning the corner. It seemed like the intelligence was getting there. He was making great instinctual plays, on defense. He was really catching the eye of not just Peyton, but, people that were on, the defense and the coaching staff. So Skinner is one that I've circled a little bit too, as far as a player that I feel like, has some stuff to prove.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure.
And obviously we would be remiss if we didn't talk about a guy who has spent his entire career as a Denver Bronco working on the side of the field in practice, and that would be tight end Greg Dulcich. It is what it is, but Greg Dulcich, he really needs to be healthy. I love the idea of him at least doing the surgery early, getting it done over with. I hope that he's ready for training camp and, obviously preseason. I wouldn't be surprised if they hold him out a little bit, maybe even for preseason, but I even feel like that's also bad news to a degree, because we need to see him in action to know where he's at health-wise. So for Dulcich, like, man, I don't want to say, in the conversation of what we were having with Albert Okuegbunam and at least the possibility of them keeping both Okuegbunam and Dulcich, but if by happenstance they, move on with Lucas Kroll as a starter, but they still have Greg Dulcich and he's healthy, you have two athletic tight ends now that you would have had last year with Okuegbunam, and Dulcich, to where you have a much higher probability of stretching the field a little bit in athletic tight ends. So I'm hoping, that Dulcich will turn the corner, but this is a very pivotal year for Dulcich this year.
Yeah. Honestly, I think just the tight end room in general needs to prove something. Someone needs to prove that they can be this team's starting tight end. And Greg Dulcich is definitely the front runner there. Yeah, he's up there.
Yeah. Any more that you feel like maybe that we are sleeping on, or or maybe ones that maybe are on the rug, or we haven't had a chance to mention?
I'm tempted to say Marvin Mims, but I'm not, because I don't think it's been long enough. I can't say he needs to prove anything because he's been good, but I'm just excited to see what we do with him.
Yeah. And there's probably some others, that we didn't get a chance to mention. We touched briefly, obviously, within the edge room, Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning. I'm very curious to see how it all transpires this year. We will probably dive a little bit more into this conversation as far as training camp, and doing positional previews, which is something I would be looking out for, in the future. For anybody that are new Manely Bronco fans, we do positional previews once we're into training camp, and we do a position by position breakdown and look at just specific position groups and how they shake out. And maybe it's actually time, now that we actually have Bo Nixon to the fold, Brandon, where we bring back a little bit of a discussion that we had recently with Shane, and maybe we can bring Shane Carter back on. But maybe we actually have this conversation again, where we look at the AFC West in general, and we talk about how do the players stack up versus the other teams in the division. Maybe we do that. It's been a while since we've actually done that, and especially in the vein of there's been so much talk about the Broncos and what's the current state of the roster, how good is their roster. So real quick, Alex, we touched on it just a little bit briefly. I feel like as a seventh rounder, we are worried a little bit because, I mean, it's his first known action, right? Like it's his first known action, and really taking the reins from Lloyd Cushenberry. And that's one of the reasons why, Forsythe really is one of those players that, has a lot to prove because, he has to prove that, moving on from Cushenberry financially was the right decision. Actually, I saw it a little bit differently, Alex, and I think Brandon did too, where, when we drafted him, there was some pushback. I think there was some pushback, but actually, a lot of the analysts that we saw, I think it was, Hayden Winks, I feel like that was on social media for Underdog Football. Jeff Schwartz specifically, to name him, he loved, and he's a former player, former actual tackle with the Kansas City Chiefs. He loved Forsythe at center. And
I think he was the guy that said it was like it should have been a second round pick or something. I think.
Yeah,
he said something insane.
Yeah, so I'd be curious to see where you saw that because I feel like Brendan, you and I actually saw maybe a little bit more positives that were coming a little bit from him even being a 7th round draft pick.
Oh yeah, maybe he wasn't the one that said. Someone said he should have been a 2nd round pick. I know specifically Schwartz said he loved him. I think Schwartz said he was the best center in the draft or something. Like there definitely were almost everyone. I didn't see a single person say that he should have been a 7th round draft pick. Let's just say that.
Yeah. But we are looking forward to certainly, talking a little bit more about the Denver Broncos and, the current state more and more episode by episode on the Manly Broncos, of the roster. And make sure you tune in next time on another episode of the Manly Broncos. Make sure you go and follow the Twitter handle of Manly Broncos at Manly Broncos. Go follow Brandon and I on social media at Brandon Miller PO and at Cameron Parker PO. Also, I would like to stump our merch store. Obviously, we just had a plug for the for the apron, right? And I just dropped it into the chat. Make sure you click that link if you guys are fans of not just the Manly Broncos podcast, but other podcasts on the network. You guys can rep your favorite podcast or podcasts, by buying swag and merch from them. The shirt that I'm actually wearing is a performance tee, if you will, a workout tee. Actually, I just had a workout today. Not wearing this, but I did have a workout tonight. But make sure you go and you get some swag. Maybe you go out and you get an apron. So if you are actually cooking steaks this summer, or something else, you want to rep your favorite podcast. You want to rep
that'd be sweet.
Your Manly Broncos podcast.
Yeah, you got to get the apron, man.
That's right. Ian, what's up, buddy? So make sure
the urge to. I'm gonna create the Breaking Bad meme that says someone cooked here, but he's gonna be wearing the Manly Broncos apron.
We need you know what? Call this a order, but you and I both know him. He's been in this chat tonight. Josh, I need you to buy, I need you to buy this apron. I need you to buy this apron so that we can actually make this happen. What Brandon just described, we need to make this happen. No, and with
we can find the Chargers schedule release video where they had Harrison Butker in the kitchen and put the apron on him.
With that, it was a fantastic show, and as you can clearly see in the back of where Brandon is sitting, make sure you go watch Deadpool and Wolverine when it comes out.
Dude, I'm so hyped.
Because we are all very hyped about, obviously, that particular movie out. That's coming out. Also, we were remiss, we're nerds, so we're certainly looking forward to the entire month of June.
This month's gonna be OP, man.
The Arcalite came out. The Boys is coming out.
Arcalite, The Boys, season 2 of House of the Dragon.
Mm-hmm. It is. I think Rings of Power is coming out in a few months. It's going to be a very nerdy session in June, and then in July, obviously, we have pre-ordered obviously NCAA 25. So I'm looking forward to cooking Brandon.
Oh, dude, I'm hyped for that too.
So I'm looking forward to cooking Brandon. On numerous occasions with Dylan Raiola.
Mm-hmm. Good luck with that one.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a lot of fun, and maybe if we can make it work, maybe we do a stream of some kind of this, Nebraska beatdown that will transpire with Brandon. Maybe we can actually work that, here on the network. That would be a lot of fun. That would be
pretty fun. That would be pretty fun.
That would be pretty fun. Anyway, it's been real. It's been fun. Go follow Brandon and myself on Twitter, as we said. Cameron Parker PO, Brandon Miller PO. It was an absolute blast. Like and subscribe to the MHRT network. We are at 1.3, so 1,300 subscribers, I should say. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and tune into your favorite show. We just had a member of the Wild Wild West appear on our comments here tonight. They recently just had a show just before ours on Wednesday. And obviously, with it being Broncos season, there's a ton of Broncos-related podcasts that's on the network. The Avs season certainly got over with, but there is the Cluster Puck podcast. It is a seasonal podcast, obviously, but there is the BPA show that happens every April. There's the Mile High Symposium now that is also appearing on Wednesday, which is just a overarching Denver sports show with JT Matthews and Nick Manning. There's a lot certainly to watch over here on the network. It was a fantastic show. We will see you guys next week for another episode of the Manely Broncos Podcast.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute.